Ask unanimous consent that we work from committee sub. Without objection, that'll be the order. Senator Yin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senate Bill 83, the committee sub, is drastically different from the introduced version, and it actually allows all current exemptions to vaccination. Did everyone hear that? It allows all current exemptions to vaccination. For the medical exemption, the parents or guardian need to get the signature of a physician that's a DO or an MD. The other part of the bill says that for the non-medical exemption, again, we still will have that, the non-medical exemption. The parent or guardian needs to watch a video online about the benefits as well as the risks of vaccination. After viewing the video, they will be able to print off a form that they sign stating they would like the non-medical exemption and that they've watched the video, and they will need to get that notarized. Again, this continues to allow all exemptions, medical as well as non-medical. I ask do pass.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions on Senate Bill 83? Senator Pittman for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a couple of questions. Senator, can you tell me if families who have a philosophical exemption already on file, how would this affect them? Because I noticed that in your amendments, you're putting several exemptions in there, but it does not address the philosophical.
The philosophical exemption, as well as the religious, as well as the personal, would go under the non-medical exemptions. They are still allowed. Okay?
Senator Pittman, would you allow for just a second? We have an amendment at the desk, and maybe, if it's okay, I'll come right back to you. Maybe we should entertain this amendment. I think Senator Silk has an amendment at the desk, if the clerk could read. Should have a copy of that.
I move to amend Senate Bill number 83, page 2, line 13, by inserting after the word child the words and the possible medical complications resulting from vaccinations. Page 2, line 15, by deleting the word notarized. And page 3, line 3, by inserting after the word child the words and the possible medical complications resulting from vaccinations. Submitted by Senator Silk.
Senator Silk, you're recognized. Explain your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Senator Yin had just stated, we want the video to portray both sides, not only the benefits of vaccination, but we want it to be very well-rounded. We want an educated populace, so we want them to also know the risks of a vaccination. That's what the two of those parts of the amendment are. And the third part is I don't really see there to be a need to have this notarized. The rules that have been placed, or you can't print out the document without watching the video anyway. So to me, it doesn't seem there needs to be a need to have it notarized. With that, I yield for questions.
I have a question of the chair, too.
Any other? That's it? Okay.
Second on the amendment.
Second on the amendment, Senator Griffith. Senator Pittman, you recognize for a question on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Silk, did I hear you say you wanted both sides? So this amendment would allow them to not only watch the video for vaccinations, but also the implications of what happens when you don't get vaccinated. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Senator, that is what it is. I have some numbers here that I've been looking at for the past few years about medical or vaccine injuries, and I just think before we encourage the citizens of the state of Oklahoma to have their children vaccinated, they need to be aware of not only the benefits of vaccination, but they also need to be aware of the risks involved.
We have a due pass. We have a second on the amendment. Any further questions on the amendment? Further questions? Any debate on the amendment? Oh, question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe the amendment has something incorrect. It says line 12. the first line. It's line 13, I believe. So if we could just be sure to correct that.
Thank you, Senator. Any further questions? Seeing none, any debate? All those in favor of adopting the amendment say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Amendment is adopted. We're back on the bill as amendment, committee sub as amended. Senator Pittman, I'm going to go to you for a question on the bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I heard in the opening remarks, Senator, that the parents will be required to watch a video. So if you are a parent with multiple children and you have 5 children, every time they go in to get a certain number of vaccinations, how many times would they have to watch this particular video? And will the video be accessible at the doctor's office? Because I have constituents that don't have access to internet-based information.
I believe this video would be accessible in multiple places, including school, the doctor's office, lots of places. Now, my thought is that if you have more than one child, one of these forms would suffice for all your children. We do have someone from the health department that maybe could speak to that. Carter, please come to the mic, identify yourself, and maybe answer that.
My name is Carter Kimball. I'm the Director of Policy for the State Department of Health. With regards to the form, the way it works right now is that you have the form to the school to register, correct? So at which point you would need a separate form for each child when registering. However, the ability to get the form is what's required from viewing the video. So if that needs to be addressed, the health department can do that.
Senator Pittman for a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is a question for the chairman.
Just stick around, Carter.
Okay. Mr. Carter, thank you so much for being here.
You bet.
And I appreciate you entertaining these questions because I have constituency that are very, very active about this particular piece of legislation. And so if you are now currently required to have a form in your child's school and you have multiple students and there's a requirement that's current for each student, would you be willing to submit a friendly amendment to where this legislation says that if there are multiple children at the same school, that one form can suffice from the same parents? Because currently it does not say that.
Is that a question to me?
Yeah, I think so,
Yes.
Carter.
Are you willing to work? Are you willing to work with the adjustments?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the intent is not for there to be kind of multiple iterations of the same exemption, if that makes sense. Sure.
For a follow-up, no. Senator, you for a question of...
Well, I would be open to say, children, if they have more than one children. Yeah, well, we don't want them to come, every 6 months because they have a whole bunch of kids or anything. Yeah.
Senator Griffin, did you have a question for Carter? Oh, I'll be right back to you, Senator.
We're still on the amendment, correct?
No, we're back on the bill
Back
as
on the
amended.
bill? Okay. This bill has an emergency clause, meaning all of this would have to be ready to go by July 1. Is that possible at all?
Yeah, it is. So from the health department's perspective, we have to host the video. And so being able to upload the video, there are resources currently available that would fit the definition and the requirements of the video right now that already exist. So from the health department's perspective, I'm not even sure that we would have to create the video if the bill stays in its current form.
Let me jump right back to... Do you have a comment on that?
Yeah. I believe we make it July because of the school year starting, I think.
Oh, okay. Senator Pittman, sorry I jumped away from you. Senator Pittman for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your indulgence, and I'm sure there's other legislators in the queue, and I'll be brief. But I wanted to make it clear, if you're willing to work together, can you submit that amendment today so that the bill will reflect that parents are not going to be penalized for multiple children? Or is there some way to clarify?
If you're willing to put that in writing, yeah, I'd be happy to look at it.
staff is working on that, Senator Pittman, if
That's
you want to
perfect.
see what they come up with for you over here.
It's perfect.
Okay.
I'll sign it. And then
Okay.
I do have a follow-up question.
Okay. Okay. No, that's a different amendment, I think. That's going to take staff just a couple minutes. It's further questions while we're waiting on these amendments. Oh, Senator Silk for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a line of questions, so and if you need to jump back, Senator Pittman, just feel free. Senator, do you feel like there's any constitutional issues with this bill?
No.
Okay. Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Follow up, Grant.
So Article 1, Section 1, TAC 5 of the Oklahoma Constitution talks about the public education system being open to all school-age children. Are we going to have to do a constitutional amendment to say all school-age children that have fallen into under the requirements?
No, I've had an attorney look at the U.S. Constitution as well as the state Constitution with regards to this bill.
Senator Silk for a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So seeing how long is this video going to be?
That will be up to the health department, and it will be brief. It will be basically sort of like a vaccine information statement, which we currently give out for specific vaccines. This will be sort of a generalized one about the benefits, the risks, and it will lead the parent or guardian to places where they can find more information if they would like.
Follow up.
You're recognized for one more follow-up, then we'll switch to amendment. You're
Thank you, Mr.
recognized for
Chairman.
a follow-up.
What do we have a cost estimate on producing this video?
The health department says it would be nominal.
If you don't mind, Senator Silk, going to hold off. Senator Griffin, are we still working on Senator Pittman's amendment?
Yes.
If Senator Pittman's okay, we'll jump over to Senator Griffin. If Senator Pittman has an amendment at the desk, the clerk would read, please.
I move to amend Senate Bill number 83, page 2, line 14, as follows. Insert the words that provides a link to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's vaccine excipient and media summary submitted by Senator Griffin.
Thank you. Senator Griffin, you're recognized. Explain your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members that were in the Senate last year will remember the conversations we had regarding pink sheets and the postage of the posting the excipient, which is just a very, very brief list of ingredients for each vaccine. This would just require that if we're going to have this site, it would have that list linked to it as well. Kind of takes that conversation regarding pink sheets that we had last session and puts it into a real simple form. I move to pass on the amendment.
Move to pass on the amendment. Have a second, Senator Yak. Any questions on the amendments? Senator Yin, you're recognized for a question on the amendment.
Yes, actually, this was discussed last year. And actually, you're talking about Appendix B of the Pink Book. The Pink Book is a reference book this thick, okay? That is a reference book. It's not made for even a physician to read, and it's certainly not made for a layperson to read, okay? It's a reference book. Appendix B is a 42-page document, and that's what the bill last year wanted to give people. It's a 42-page document. So I disagree that it's short, okay? It lists 42 vaccines and the possible ingredients in each vaccine, okay? 42 vaccines, including anthrax, typhoid, smallpox, which is not part of our current statute. And each vaccine, the possible ingredients might be anywhere from 15 to 25. And even at the very top of this table, it says this list includes items that are possibly in the vaccine because they are processed at the same plant that processes the vaccine, okay? Now, I will also tell you, though, that I had already discussed with the health department of having a link on the video to go to that.
Did you know?
No, I did
Yes,
not.
that was my question.
No, I did not know. But, and I will just just to answer the question that I think was a question. I took a look at it earlier, and it isn't super scary. So I think it's pretty easily interpretable for most individuals.
Absolutely. Any further questions on the amendment? Senator Simpson, you're recognized for a question on the amendment. Any other further questions on the amendment? Questions on the amendment? Have a due pass. Have a second. Senator Pittman, recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the question on the amendment.
On Senator Griffin's amendment.
Thank you. Mr. Carter, While we're providing the video and the link to list the vaccinations and their ingredients, will the link also provide the form that needs to be signed by the parents? Where do they get the form?
Yeah, so the way that we had discussed it being set up was that in order to get the form, the video pops up when you click on it, and once it expires, the link for the form becomes active. Right? So think of the equivalent of reading through a disclosure statement or something like that, where you have to scroll all the way through, and then you can click the button. Same function, where the button will be there, it just won't be active until the video expires.
Any
Thank
further
you.
questions on the amendment? Any further questions? Senator McCourtney for a question on the amendment.
Thank you. I guess there are a few of us who were not here last year when we debated pink sheets. So if Senator could help us to kind of know where that debate ended and give us a little history, I think that would help us in our vote.
Senator Griffin, yes. You're answering the question, Senator Griffin. It's your amendment.
Yeah, I've got to remember what happened.
I can answer it if you
yeah,
can't.
let you answer that. I believe the bill was passed in the Senate and then died in the House. Is that correct?
Vetoed.
Vetoed. Yeah, it was vetoed. That's right. It did not become law. Put it that way.
Follow up, Senator McCourtney.
My other question would be, if I understand the language correctly to this amendment, you wouldn't actually have to click on the link to get the form. It's just that the link would be available on the page. Is that correct, Senator Griffin?
That was the intent of the way that I drafted it.
Any further questions on the amendment? Any further questions on the amendment? Oh, Senator Yin for a question, comment.
Yes, last year, the bill that you're speaking of, it actually, Senator McCourtney passed both chambers and went to the governor's desk, and she vetoed it. And then there was an attempted override of the veto in the House that failed.
Thank you. Any further questions on the amendment? Do pass second. Do we have any debate on the amendment? Any debate? All those in favor of adopting the amendment say aye. All those opposed, nay. I declare the amendment to be adopted. And now we're back on the bill as amended. I think we have another amendment ready. If clerk would read Senator Pittman's amendment.
I move to amend Senate Bill number 83, page 2, line 14, as follows. By inserting after the word health, the words, provided a parent or guardian with more than one child shall only be required to view the information once to satisfy the provisions of this subsection, submitted by Senator Pittman.
Senator Pittman, you're recognized to explain your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The amendment is self-explanatory. Sometimes we have students that are attending the same school, and you can have up to 5 children if you have a blended family, and we just don't want to be cumbersome on the parents every 3 to 6 months as each child rotates through the vaccination cycle.
Yeah,
Be happy to answer.
I hear it can be up to 7 kids in some instances. Thank you, Senator Pittman. Any questions on the amendment? Any questions on the amendment? Do we have a due pass by Senator Pittman? Have a second by Senator Rader. Any debate on the amendment? Any debate? All those in favor of adopting the amendment say aye. All those opposed, nay. Declare the amendment to be adopted. We're back on the bill as amended and amended and amended. Any further questions on the bill? Senator Pittman for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have one last question, just for clarification purposes, Senator Yin. Can you tell me that every parent or legal guardian is required to watch the video?
No, just the ones that want a non-medical exemption.
Any further questions? Senator Simpson for a question. I'm coming back.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Yin, we talked about this briefly before lunch, and I like the idea that you're moving toward a compromise position. But the more I read your bill and the committee substitute that we have, and pondered this, I keep getting stuck on requiring parents to view this video. I had much rather see this language be that they submit the document attesting that they understand the requirements or the problems associated with vaccinations and the benefits associated, and provide the video as a source of information for them if they need more information on the problems associated with vaccines or the benefits of vaccines. I'm having a hard time compelling parents to watch a video in order to make a decision in the life of their children, because I think most people that are pursuing a non-medical exemption would have already researched the information extremely well, and I'm not sure that we're going to enlighten parents much by making them and compelling them to watch a video. And that's my sticking point right now, is we're compelling parents to jump through a hoop so that they are able to make decisions in life for their children. And I really, that really has stuck into my craw. And I had rather see the video be there for an informational purposes to assist parents in making this decision, not to compel them to watch it in order to make the decision.
Senator, what's your thoughts on that?
Thank you for the question. I know several school nurses, and they believe there are a significant number of parents who currently sign for that non-medical exemption because that's easy to do, okay? They just sign a piece of paper, and they may end up vaccinating their children. But they go, well, why don't I just sign that? Then I don't have to, okay? And those people, yes, they definitely need to be educated, in my opinion, and I think they should watch such a video. This video is going to be brief. Again, it's going to talk about the benefits as well as the risks. And yes, there are risks to vaccination. I admit that. But thankfully, they're quite low, thankfully. And our problem in Oklahoma is our vaccination rate's not high enough. I think you have a document in front of you that says that for the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, Oklahoma used to be 95, some years 96, one year 97% vaccinated. 97%, which should be adequate for herd immunity. But for the 14-15 school year, Oklahoma was only 90.3%. And you've probably heard about the mumps outbreak in Oklahoma, which was directly linked to the mumps outbreak in Arkansas. And the index case of the Arkansas case of the outbreak was unvaccinated. And that document you have in front of you also says that 5 years ago in the entire country, there were 229 cases of mumps, 229. Last year, there were over 4,000, and over 2,000 of them were in Arkansas. Why Arkansas? Because Arkansas's vaccination rate for MMR is even lower than Oklahoma. And so why didn't we have as big an outbreak as Arkansas? Because the outbreak here was centered in Enid, Oklahoma, and the vaccination rate in the Enid public schools, according to their superintendent, is over 95%. So that's how we know these vaccinations work. And we've got to do everything we can to actually encourage vaccination. Now, again, absolutely, we should talk about the risks, and we will in this video.
One quick follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Simpson for a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, again, how many non-medical exemptions are usually, on the average, are requested annually in Oklahoma? Non-medical exemptions.
That's an excellent question, and I should have mentioned that. The most recent data, the non-medical exemptions in Oklahoma for kindergartners is on the order of 800, okay, 800, and the medical exemptions are on the order of 80, okay? Now, that's just kindergarten. If you multiply by 13 grades, K through 12, you get a really big number.
I'll come back to you if you got a follow-up. But Senator Silk, sorry I delayed getting back to you. You're recognized for a question. Follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a few questions here, and if you need to move on, feel free. Going back to the nominal cost of the program, Oregon has a similar idea. They have a video that you have to watch to get your exemption, and it cost Oregon $750 million to implement this program. And I'm just wondering, at this financial state in our, in our state, do we actually need that?
Perhaps we could have the health department speak to that.
So from the perspective of development of a video, we actually think that there are resources readily available, so we don't actually have to produce anything. We can just post it on the health department website. back to Senator Griffin's earlier point about can it be done by June, we actually think it can. And it's through the CDC. It covers a couple different issues around risk and benefit, and then the approval process for what it takes for a vaccine to actually get to market. So the nominal cost is really just the hosting of it on the state's servers, and that's the cost that we came up with.
Quick interjection by the chair. So do you have a total dollar amount idea that's been, or is this such a new idea you're not sure, or tens of thousands, thousands?
No, thousands.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Silk for a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So moving on to a different statement by Senator Yen just a minute ago about, vaccine injuries being rare, or, we need to encourage people to vaccinate their kids. I'm not convinced that we need to be encouraging vaccinations. I think we need to provide information. I'm sure you're familiar with the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, as founded in 1986. From 1998, and this is a question because I want to follow up with, your thought on this. From 1998 to June 2015, the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program paid out $3.1 billion in vaccine-injured kids. So when you break that down over a 17-year period, it's $182.3 million annually. So those numbers, can you explain how, if vaccine injuries aren't really that common, why is it that the federal government paid out $3.1 billion over a 17-year period in vaccine-injured families?
Yes, I can. Again, a serious reaction to a vaccination is quite rare. It depends on the specific vaccine, but it's on the order of 1 to 2 per million for a serious complication. Okay. In fact, for tetanus, it's actually 1 to 2 per 10 million. For the flu non-live vaccine, which is not currently mandated by state law, okay, but that's as an example, it's actually 1 to 2 per million. And for hepatitis B, actually, according to the World Health Organization, it is 0. Now, the National Vaccine Injury Court, that came about back then. Why? Because we know even if a vaccine is manufactured properly, you will rarely have a complication. We know that, okay, except for maybe hepatitis B. So that National Vaccine Injury Court came about so that families and patients could be financially reimbursed. But our government, our federal government, thought those monies should not come from the drug manufacturers if they made the vaccine properly. Okay, so these are complications that occur in spite of a vaccine manufactured properly. And I will tell you, probably the most common serious reaction is an allergy to something in the vaccine. Okay? Now, if a manufacturer of a vaccine makes a vaccine improperly, they absolutely can be sued.
Follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
Follow-up, granted, Senator Silk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the CDC reports that from 2003 to 2015, there were 0 deaths related to measles, but there was 108 deaths due to vaccine injuries. So that's the CDC. So I'm wondering if that's what they're reporting, why in the world are we trying to get more people vaccinated?
So let me see. You just mentioned, what'd you say, measles?
Yes.
Measles. Okay. So you're lumping one vaccination, measles, and then you're looking at all vaccinations combined? Is that what you did? I'm sorry, I'm asking a question. I guess I'm not supposed to ask a question.
No, that's fine. I'll be happy to answer it. Yeah, that's completely fine. So if that's the statistics on one of these vaccinations, perhaps this bill needs to be a little bit more specific on outlining vaccines that aren't as harmful.
Remember, the 11 vaccines that are in statute, these are vaccinations that have been around for many, many, many years. There's nothing new. The flu is not in it. Meningitis is not in it. The HPV vaccine is not in it. And did you know that about 5 years ago, an otherwise healthy 18-year-old girl, not in Oklahoma, died of measles? And did you know that prior to the measles vaccination, measles is so contagious that everyone in America got measles by the time they were 18, okay? Everyone. So you go, gee, measles, this is not such a bad deal. Well, every year, 450 people died on average from the measles. Died. So that's why the benefits of vaccinations far, far outweigh the risks. There's no question about that, according to the scientists. And I have a letter from multiple health organizations that was sent to President Trump that says that, okay? And this is signed by hundreds of healthcare organizations, including the AMA, the pediatricians, the family practice doctors, and 3 autism groups.
One follow.
Senator Silk, you're recognized for a follow-up.
So going back to since this is such a contentious and debated and idea, what is the reason that we're doing this? Is Oklahoma in danger? I mean, why are we changing this and going and causing such a stir?
Because our vaccination rates have plummeted. That's why. Like I said before, we used to be, for MMR, 95, 96, 97%. And for the 14-15 school year, we were 90.3. Okay? That is the wrong direction. And we will just have to disagree. I believe vaccinations the benefits far outweigh the risks. And you think otherwise, and that's fine.
Senator Pittman, you're recognized for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Carter, thank you again for being here. I have just a quick question. The form that will then be activated after the video is watched, is there any way you can give us an idea of what that form will say?
Same form. Same form that it is now.
And does that mean the current form actually says, when a parent signs it, that it says anywhere on the form, I have opted out of vaccinations and I am putting my child at risk?
Senator Pittman, I am not aware of what the current verbiage on the form is. I can obtain a copy and send it to you if you'd like.
Thank you.
For a follow-up, Senator Pittman.
Yes, sir. And my concern is California does this, and they have a form that when parents sign it, it says, and that's the form they have to submit to the school, it says, I am putting my child at risk because my child has not been vaccinated. So I'm just looking at, are we going to propose another controversial issue by the state health department and then have to come back and figure out how to address it?
That is not proposed.
My understanding is that this legislation does not touch the form.
Perfect. And
For a follow-up, Senator Pittman.
thank you. Also, Mr. Carter, thank you. We currently have some shortfalls in the state health department, and my colleague asked that if this would be in place by July 1. And if we're short-staffed and we also have some concerns statewide, how do we ensure that the video, the vaccinations, and the form will be ready to go by July 1?
So in answer to it's a two-part question, whether you realize it or not. So the first part as to putting the video up on the website, in the most technical sense, that's actually an OMES function because they manage our website. But we manage the content, as it were. So we'll provide that content to them for them to post to our site. The second question about availability of vaccine, part of our budget request this year actually is requesting more dollars for state-purchased vaccine. So this wouldn't impact that. We've got an issue about shortage right now that this doesn't exacerbate or help.
Any further questions on the bill? Any further questions on the bill? Excellent. Do we have a due pass by Senator Yen? Second by Senator Rader. Any debate on the bill? Any debate? Senator Pugh, you're recognized for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Yen. To the folks gathered in this room, I will tell you that I have gone round and round with Dr. Yen on this issue, and I commend him for being willing to compromise, for putting forth an amendment that may not be exactly the piece of legislation that he wanted, but I believe it to be well intended, and I certainly trust his medical expertise. To everyone else in this room, if any of you know who Salith Sar is, probably not. Well, I will tell you that Salith Sar was the leader of the Communist Party in Cambodia. He went by the name of Pol Pot. And some of you in this room actually called Senator Yen Pol Pot and likened him to Hitler. I'm going to vote no on this bill because I think it's the right of every parent in this state to put in their kid's body what they see fit. I find it disgusting that anybody would liken a member of this body to Hitler or to Pol Pot, a man who killed almost half of his population in Cambodia. That is disgusting to me. Let the yahoos and the knuckleheads and the ding-dongs in D.C. talk to each other like that. But when we leave this building, no matter how we vote, we have a responsibility to walk back into our district and be able to be testimonies of our faith and of what Christ, who has done a work inside of us, tells us to treat and how to engage others in our community and in our world. And it is absolutely unbelievable to me that anybody would espouse to the principles of Christianity and look at a legislator who's doing what he thinks is best and call him or liken him to Hitler or Pol Pot or another mass murderer who has done disgusting atrocities in a place that doesn't enjoy nearly the freedoms that we have in this country. So I beg of you, in the future, while this vote may be important to you, and there are plenty of people who are passionate on both sides of this issue, please remember that no matter how we vote in this committee or on the Senate floor, that the process matters more than the vote. That how we treat each other matters more than the results of this particular piece of legislation. And if this state really wants to be a beacon of Christianity and a beacon of how we're supposed to engage each other, even when we disagree, then I would urge all of you to please consider that. Guard your heart, guard your actions, guard your tongue, so that when you speak and when you engage the world, you may really be showing what your values are, what you espouse your beliefs to be. I am going to vote no on this bill, and Dr. Yen may never talk to me again, and there goes my opportunity for free anesthesia. However, I applaud him for being willing to work on this particular issue. And I beg all of you, please, going forward, no matter what issue we bring before this body or on the floor or in this building, it will never be more important than what happens outside of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Further debate. Senator Rader for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Yen, I want to thank you for the compromise on this. I was not looking forward to what I was looked as a vote that was a no-win situation. I see in this bill parental rights preserved. I see in this bill a chance for education, even though one of our senators pointed out that most people come into this very well educated, and they are, but there's going to be some that go by word of mouth. Education is never a bad idea. You've given them an opportunity for that and a very simple and easy way to do that. There's been a verification way to do it that we've been assured by the department. It's going to be easy, not complicated to do that. I've learned a lot from you, Senator Yen. If it had been me, I would have taken my ball and gone home. This is a good compromise. This is good for the state of Oklahoma. It preserves parental rights. It advances education and should serve us well in this state by passing this law. I would urge other colleagues to vote for it.
Thank you, Senator. Any further debate on the bill? Senator Griffin, you're recognized for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to echo some of what both of my distinguished colleagues just said. Senator Yen, you have come to the table with a product that now, and especially as amended in committee, if it were to pass, it would not be a huge loss for anyone in the room because we would have protected parental rights. But I'm like Senator Pugh. I think I will still be voting no for a couple of reasons. Government has several roles, and one of those roles is we do govern how we interact with each other and where our lives intersect. But we also have the very important role of protecting the minority. And the individuals that may be in this room or elsewhere in the state that have chosen not to vaccinate their children for one reason or another, which as a mom is a decision I disagree with. My children are vaccinated, and I would never let the opportunity to prevent them from being ill or prevent an issue with their life that could happen later. I would not do that with all my own children, but that was my choice as a parent. It is the role of government to protect the minority, and this is a minority, but they do deserve our protection at this point. I, even with the changes in the bill, am a little concerned that we have created something that might just be a little bit too complicated and is not necessarily based on data, and I'd like to see us spend additional time collecting appropriate data so that when we're making a decision, it's based not necessarily on things we might think may happen, but things that we know are happening as we interact with each other. But again, thank you so much, Dr. Yin, for your willingness to bring a product that, if it is to pass, it would be not necessarily a loss for anyone in the room.
Thank you, Senator Griffin. Jump over this side, Senator Simpson, real quick. Senator Silk, you're recognized for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, members, I agree with what a lot of members have said. Thank you, Senator Yin, for compromising on this bill. We had a couple good amendments. However, I agree, even with the amendments, what we're doing is burdening Oklahoma parents. If they don't agree with vaccinations, we are now putting another layer of bureaucracy in them to exercise that freedom, which I do not agree with. The numbers that we see from the CDC and other people, vaccines we really don't know if they're safe or not. Like I said, from 1998 to June 2015, 3.1 billion paid out in vaccine injured kids. That's no small number to reckon with. And I don't think we need to add that layer of bureaucracy to attempt to vaccinate more kids until we have those numbers. At the very beginning of this, of this bill, you had referenced that there was a couple outbreaks in Arkansas and around other places. The CDC actually commented on those outbreaks, and it was a Dr. Ann Schuchant. She works with the Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases for the CDC. And she said, we know that there are places around the country where there are a large number of people who aren't vaccinated. However, we don't think those exemptors are driving this current wave. So that's straight from the CDC. And considering there's such a risk with vaccines, anytime there's a risk, we've got to make sure that there's a choice. And we've got to make sure that that choice does not come with layers of burden on our Oklahoma parents. So I strongly recommend and I urge you to vote no, as I will. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Silk. Senator Simpson, you're recognized for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would just like to commend my colleague, Senator Pugh, with the passion in his voice, because all of us in this caucus were upset when we saw some of the attacks that were being launched against our fellow colleague, Senator Yin. Uncalled for attacks on his family, attacks on him at his church, his place of worship. Those hurt the cause. Even though the cause may be worthy, those radicals within the cause hurt the cause. And we're family here, and we stick up for those. We may disagree on things philosophically, but we will not allow those that we work with be abused and humiliated. And I would just caution those here, recommend to your friends and neighbors that tactic not be used, because it hurts your cause more than it helps your cause. My disagreement here is not a medical disagreement, because I have no medical training. It's more of a philosophical difference, because I just don't feel comfortable putting obstacles in the way of parents in order to make decisions in their lives of their children. I think that is an area that we as legislators must be very hesitant to tread into. I do commend Senator Yin for being open-minded and for compromise and moving this piece of legislation forward. I still have difficulty with it and will not be supporting it today. But I do not question his integrity or his motivation for doing this. I commend him for his dedication to this cause. And if I know Senator Yin, we're probably going to see this again in the very near future. And I do commend him for his hard work in this subject. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Simpson. Senator Floyd, you're recognized for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank Senator Yin for being willing to listen to quite a few people that have been speaking and to do his best to do what was best for the state and for his district. I think it's been amazing how many people have been interested in this topic and been willing to take their time and their energy to let us know up here, your elected officials, how you felt about this and the passion involved with it. And I think that for better or for worse, you're seeing your elected officials do exactly what we do, and that is asking questions and making arguments for and against, and in many of our cases, voting for our constituency and maybe even against personally what we would do. And I think that speaks highly of the people that you've elected. I know that I am going to support this bill with the changes based on my constituents, not my personal views on this issue, but doing what I was hired to do by being elected, and that is representing my constituents and voting for them. So I will be voting in favor of this bill.
Thank you, Senator Floyd. Any further debate on the bill? Any further debate? Quick point of privilege. I'd like to make a couple quick comments on the bill. I think Senator Simpson addressed something, the good senator, I believe, is going to continue to work on this. I think this shows a lot of effort to come to something that preserves parental rights, parental choice, but maybe doesn't really change the ball game any. And out of respect to try to find maybe some type of solution instead of continue to fight a battle that wages on and on. I will vote today to support this for parental choice, for a compromise, and for something that gets us somewhere there, certainly not anywhere close to where Senator Yin would want to be, but I think it preserves rights, especially with the amendments that we have today. So, Senator Pittman, did you want to debate? Yeah, Senator Pittman, you're recognized for debate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was only when you finished that I just wanted to make brief comments. I have a stack of folders and papers and letters and emails from concerned parents about vaccinations and their parental rights being removed. With this compromise, I am able to support this legislation because I too govern the medical community who has also responded in favor of vaccinations and in honor of public health to protect those children who have immune deficiencies who cannot be vaccinated. And so it's with that regard that I'm thankful that Senator Yin, not only in his medical profession position, but as a state senator and a colleague, has yielded to the concerns and the will of all of these parents who are sincere in their beliefs, whether they're philosophical or religious or medical. I'm thankful that I have a piece of legislation that addresses all the concerns that have been raised with this issue. So with that, I will be supporting the bill today.
Any further debate on the bill? Any further debate? Senator Yin, would you like to close debate?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate all the questions as well as the debate. This bill, as amended twice, or is it three times? Three times, is nowhere near the bill I started with, okay? Nowhere near. And in my opinion, it was a huge compromise on my part. And a lot of the people in this room have come to me or emailed me or sent me letters talking about parental choice. Well, you know what this bill does? It preserves parental choice. It absolutely does. And with regards to the mumps outbreak in Arkansas, I don't know what the person at the CDC said, but we know that when vaccination rates go down, we have outbreaks. Now, as Senator Pugh talked about, we are very lucky to be living in the United States of America. Did you know that in Africa, polio is coming back? I believe it's Nigeria. 2 babies in Nigeria have polio. Why? Because their vaccination rate decreased. But their vaccination rates did not decrease because parents chose not to vaccinate. Their vaccination rates have decreased because terrorists have killed 8 healthcare workers vaccinating children. We're very lucky we live in the United States. I was not born in the United States. And I'm not going to talk about what Senator Pugh talked about because it doesn't deserve talking about, in my opinion. I'm living the American dream. My parents brought me and my 2 siblings here so I could live the American dream. They made huge sacrifices for who? Their children. I'm a lucky guy. I'm a very lucky guy. And remember, if only 90% of our school kids are vaccinated for measles, mumps, rubella, that means 10% are not. What's 10% of how many school kids do we have? 670,000? That's a big number. 67,000 maybe not vaccinated. We've got to fix that. And just this morning, a senator that was term limited and has left this body said the most important thing to him that I said previously was, what if you have an immune compromised child at home that doesn't go to school, that can't be vaccinated, but has a sibling that goes to school and is exposed to a highly contagious disease and brings it home, and it could kill the immune-compromised child? What about the rights of that child? And actually, I believe it was 5 years ago, a 2-month-old baby in Elk City died of whooping cough. Now, we don't know exactly how that child was exposed to whooping cough, but most studies say that when a child gets whooping cough like that, it's brought home by a sibling. Could have been parents, could have been grandparents, we don't know. But that's who I'm trying to protect. I'm trying to protect those children that cannot be vaccinated and those babies who are too young to be vaccinated yet, like the 2-month-old. And again, this is a huge compromise on my part. We've added these 3 amendments. And again, we're talking about protection of the minority. As I said, there were 80 children in kindergarten that got the medical exemption. They could not be vaccinated for medical reasons. But there were 800 kids that did not get vaccinated for other reasons. I'm trying to protect those 80 kids. That's what I'm trying to do. And again, you multiply that by all the kids in school, K through 12. That's a large number. And, you know, yeah, it's a little trouble for parents or guardians to watch a video. But you know what? It's a little trouble to put your baby in a car seat, isn't it? That's a little trouble. And you got to buy one. But like vaccination, The benefits of a car seat far, far outweigh the risks. Far, far. We have many, 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 many years of data on that. And interestingly, most folks in this room probably do not know that in Oklahoma, higher ed requires 4 vaccinations. Requires. You can't opt out. Measles, mumps, rubella, and meningitis. Meningitis is not currently in our statute for K through 12 kids. And all I can say is my 5 children are all vaccinated with these 11 vaccines and more. That's what I think is best for them. They're vaccinated also for meningitis and HPV. But remember, this bill, 83, that we're debating today, doesn't force anyone to get vaccinated. You still have choice. You still have choice. We're just asking you to jump through a few hoops to make sure you understand the ramifications of that choice. And again, if a family wants to homeschool, none of this applies. I hope you all will vote yes for this, as amended 3 times, and as a committee sub that is drastically different from what I started with. Thank you.
That concludes the debate. Clerk, call the roll.
Senator David? Senator Floyd? Senator Griffin? Senator Yeck? Senator McCourtney? Senator Pittman? Senator Pugh? Senator Rader? Senator Simpson? Senator Standridge?
Aye.
Senator Yen?
Aye.
7 ayes, 4 nays.
Having received 7 ayes, 4 nays, declare Senate Bill 83 to pass this committee. Go on to full Senate for consideration. Senator Union chairs, back to you to race through the rest of these bills.
Senator Griffin, you're recognized to present Senate Bill 693.